House of Commons Standing Committee on Government Operations and Estimates. Now, colleagues, before we start, I'd like to go over the schedule for committee meetings next week, which has been approved by the whips of all parties. Next week, Monday, May 11th, from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., we will be meeting. That's Eastern time, of course. And on Friday, May 15th, we will be meeting from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern time. And colleagues, I would like to take 5 minutes at the end of today's meeting to talk about the witnesses we will be inviting to appear following May 15th. Now, a couple of general comments. I think everyone is fairly familiar with them. When speaking, wait until you are recognized. Speak slowly and clearly. If you are speaking in English, ensure you are on the English channel. Conversely, if you are speaking en français, make sure you are on the French channel. And to the President of the Treasury Board, if you are planning to alternate between languages, make sure that you are switching the interpretation channel to the language that you will be speaking. And also, if we could ask you to please pause briefly between switching languages so our interpreters will be able to make the necessary adjustments. And with that, colleagues, and Minister Duclos, I will invite the President of the Treasury Board to make a brief opening statement. Welcome, Mr. Duclos. You might have to unmute your mic, Minister. Minister, we still can't hear you. Minister, we still can't hear you. If you could unmute your mic and start over.
That's bizarre. Okay, now it should be working.
Now it is working.
Do you hear me? So, no, that's very strange. Well, thank you. And thank you in particular, Mr. Kukiski, for reminding me of the technological, appropriate steps. And I'll try to be as well-behaved as I can and switch, as you said, from English to French as I move from one language to another in my brief presentation. So, thank you in particular for inviting me to be with you today. It's always a great privilege to be with your committee, by whatever means that may be. Avec moi aujourd'hui.
Joining me today from the Treasury Board Secretariat are Ms. Nancy Chawan, the Chief Human Resources Officer for the Government of Canada, and Francis Bilodeau, Acting Chief Information Officer for the Government of Canada, Marcia Santiago, Executive Director, Expenditure Strategies and Estimates, and Kathleen Owens, Assistant Controller General, Acquired Services and Assets. They will be with me to give you the information that is as specific and precise as possible. Of course, today I would like to speak to you briefly about the government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic as it relates to the public servants working remotely.
Right. Good. As you're well aware, the Government of Canada has directed its employees to work from home whenever possible to protect their health and safety and comply with public health advice. This has meant a large-scale shift of the workforce to home offices and makeshift offices, from dining rooms to kitchen islands in homes across our country. However, regardless of where they work, federal employees are continuing to be productive in their efforts to provide Canadians with the government services that they depend on every day, as well as to provide critical services and the many new measures developed quickly in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Public servants, for example, at the Canadian Revenue Agency and at Employment and Social Development Canada, have rolled out services, for instance, and benefits such as the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit and the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy. As of May 5th, there has been more than 7.5 million applicants and 10.7 process applications to the Canada Emergency Response Benefit alone. Affaires mondiales Canada.
At Global Affairs Canada, public servants have worked hard to bring Canadians home from abroad safely, nearly over 20,000 of them. And the Armed Forces has sent its members to help out at hard-hit long-term care homes in Quebec and in Ontario. These are institutions that have been very hard hit. Like private citizens, employees and owners of businesses across the country, public servants are contributing their skills and know-how to the fight against COVID-19. Since mid-March now, a large portion of these public servants, including those supporting critical services, have been working remotely whenever possible. A critical service is one that, if disrupted, would result in a high or very high degree of injury to the health, safety, security, or economic well-being of Canadians, or to the effective functioning of the Government of Canada. Departments have identified their critical services, and we continue to work to ensure the alignment of resources under established business continuity planning processes.
J'ai quelques difficultés.
I'm having a few prompts here. Okay, here we go.
Of course, there are jobs delivering services where working remotely simply is not feasible. For these employees, departments are ensuring that proper protocols are being followed, including the provision and the use of personal protective equipment, proper cleaning practices, and other measures. For the most part, though, working from home has become the new normal for many public servants that are carrying their duties during the pandemic. Comme déjà noté,
as noted, a great many public servants are working hard to develop and deliver support to Canadians, including a host of new emergency measures. While many public servants already have the necessary tools to do this, some require additional equipment such as laptops, tablets, and monitors, as well as specific accommodations to allow them to do their work. Requests for equipment are being considered on a case-by-case basis, giving priority to those employees who are delivering critical services and those for whom the employer has a duty to accommodate.
With respect to using the government network, the Internet network, the Treasury Board Secretariat, Shared Services Canada, and departmental chief information officers have worked together to maximize and therefore to expand Internet bandwidth to support remote work and prioritize network access for critical operations. Our guidance to departments has recommended that anyone not supporting critical operations, service and program delivery should limit their use of the network. Sorry for the delay and thank you for your patience, but the switch to the button is a bit slow.
Perhaps, Mr. Minister, I could suggest, since you seem to be having some difficulty in aligning English to French, if you just spoke normally and put your interpretation device to floor or off. And if you just pause briefly between switching from English to French, even though you don't have to switch channels, our interpreters should be able to keep up.
OK, thank you for your guidance. Merci de votre recommandation.
Thank you for your recommendation. I will also try. I'll also try to say in French what I said in English. In addition, we're asking employees to use their government-supplied mobile devices whenever possible to send and receive emails in line with security requirements. Connect to the network during off-peak hours and for short durations to get what they need. To support continued and necessary collaborations within and across teams, in the case of distance work, we're also asking employees to use what we call public cloud services such as Microsoft Teams, Google Hangouts, and Slack for unclassified work, and use the BBM Enterprise application to securely message for up to protected B work. We are also working with the thousands of home workers in order to better handle classified information to ensure that it is sent and handled in a safe way. We also understand that working remotely, especially during long times and long periods, can be difficult for the physical and mental health of our employees, as it is for all Canadians and for all those who work remotely in the current conditions. We have therefore put employees in contact with specialized health services such as mental health services to encourage them to stay productive, but especially healthy. For example, by setting a schedule, staying connected with colleagues and loved ones, even if it's using virtual means, making time for self-care, reminding employees to get healthy, to get enough sleep, rather, eat healthy and exercise regularly.
And I do apologize. I know we were having some technical difficulties, but we also have a limited time frame in which to work. And so I'm going to have to ask you to conclude, and we will go directly to questions. Colleagues, the minister has to leave at 12 noon. It appears we will not be able to get a full 2 rounds in, but we will go as far as we can. And our first round of 6-minute questions will start with Mrs. Block.
Are you wanting to start right now, Chair?
Yes, Mrs. Block, you're up for 6 minutes.
Okay, well, I would like to start off by recognizing and thanking our public servants, both those who are working remotely and those continuing to head into the office or to the parliamentary precinct. As the minister pointed out, I think, and as we've all experienced, working remotely has its own set of challenges that we are trying to overcome every day. Minister, I would like to ask you a question in regards to the responsibility that TBS has in overseeing government contracts. Does TBS provide guidelines for government contracts? For example, sole sourcing.
Thank you, MP Block, and sorry for having taken a bit too much time than anticipated because of the technological adjustments that I had to learn and to apply. But that's I think it's a good idea indeed to move to questions, and thank you for doing that. On the guidance and the guidelines regarding procurement, yes, Treasury Board has a set of guidelines that have been provided both before the crisis and during the crisis to maintain the integrity of the procurement system. So
you mentioned that there were guidelines both before and now during could you tell us of any additional oversight measures that the Comptroller General has implemented to ensure adequate internal controls for COVID spending?
That's a very good and important question, and I would, for the benefit of all members of Parliament on the committee, I would turn to Madame Owens, who is Controller General Adjoint, also I would say maybe Associate Controller Adjoint, and I think she's on the call.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much for the question. Certainly, with respect to emergency contracting, there are controls already within the policy. The controls are that, first of all, the emergency limits are temporary for COVID-19. So there is a time limit to these exceptional emergency contracts. Also, there is a reporting required to the Treasury Board Secretariat within 60 days on the use of the emergency contracts. In addition, you talked generally about the Controller General. He has asked all CFOs and departments across town to track their COVID-19 expenditures and report back to him so that those spending can be tracked centrally.
Thank you. I note that the minister referenced that definitely these guidelines apply to the contracts awarded for by PSPC, and I'm wondering if that stands true for contracts awarded for PPE.
Madame Owen?
Yes, any contract using emergency authorities, the same rules apply regardless.
So we were advised yesterday during a briefing that one company in particular was awarded a contract now during the COVID-19 pandemic, and that it's actually a 10-year contract. Can you tell me how that fits in with the emergency limits that you've just described for us?
I think you'd have to ask the PSPC on the specifics of that contract, but the emergency limits refer not to the duration of the contract, but the value of the contract.
All right. Well, I will definitely be asking that question of PSPC when they appear before committee again. I'd like to turn to the $4.4 billion promised by the government for protecting health and safety, and more specifically, the $2 billion for personal protective equipment and supplies. Can you tell us if the contracts that have been struck, and perhaps even according to the guidelines and measures that have been put in place, the emergency limits, if these contracts allow for prepaying?
Again, the specifics of each contract are something that you'd have to ask the contracting organization, likely PSPC in this case.
Okay, but do your guidelines allow for the prepaying of contracts? Regardless of
payments are allowed within financial management policy generally, subject to certain conditions.
And what would those conditions be?
I'm not an expert in the financial rules around them, but in general, advance payments are for receipt of goods or services within the upcoming year. They can't cross fiscal years.
Are you familiar with any limits on how much can be prepaid?
It has to be within the value of the contract, but I can check with my financial management colleagues and get back to you on those specifics.
I would appreciate that. Can you tell us?
Thank you very much, Mrs. Block. We're completely out of time, but
thank you.
Before we go to our next intervener, colleagues, and for the minister, if you are going to be asking your question en français, please ask the entire question for the entire 6 minutes en français. Minister, you can respond in the appropriate channel. If you are going to be asking the minister a question in English, please, the entire question and answer period in English. And minister, you can then switch to English on your channel rather than trying to switch back and forth. There's a few technical difficulties if we do that. With that, we'll go to Mr. Weiler for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everybody. Thank you, Minister, and for all of our witnesses for joining our virtual committee meeting this morning. We're all adjusting to working remotely. We're adapting and modernizing our systems all of a sudden to working in a very different situation. I think we have a lot to be proud of with how our public servants have really stepped up to this challenge. Minister, my question to you, how has the Treasury Board Secretariat provided flexibility to government departments so they can respond to COVID-19 quickly and efficiently?
Minister, your microphone needs to be unmuted.
Thank you for your patience and for your guidance. Yes, thank you for that very good question, MP Valor. I think you make allusion to a broad context in which we have to provide the benefits and the services that Canadians absolutely require in this very emergency situation, and B, we need to maintain the health and safety of our public servants. By the way, we are all mindful, and you reminded us of that as well, all mindful that public servants also go through sometimes difficult personal situations. They need to look after children. They might have someone sick in their household. They might be having their own personal health circumstances. So it's a combination of the two things. And Nancy Chawan, who is the Chief Human Resource Officer, she's on the line as well. She might want to add a few things, but now the key words from the start. The key word from the start was flexibility. Flexibility because of the importance of respecting individual circumstances while ensuring that the machinery of government would operate appropriately.
Great. Well, what actions have been taken to increase the teleworking capacity across government? And have these actions yielded any success?
So if I may turn to Nancy. Nancy, you would be best able to provide a level of precision and usefulness that MPs would demand.
Hello, this is Nancy Chawan. Am I heard?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you, and I apologize to the chair, the committee, and the minister for the technical difficulties this morning. We have been able, through collaboration with Shared Services Canada, my colleague Francis Bilodeau on this meeting, and others, to actually maximize productivity for the public service, even in these very exceptional times. And essentially, we were able to augment the technical capacity to make sure that our employees were abiding by public health authorities' instructions and staying at home whenever it was possible, while at the same time being able to conduct the critical business of government and even more than that. I should mention that we still had some employees showing up at the workplace when it was absolutely necessary to do so. And we also have a great contingent of our employees who are teleworking without necessarily needing constant access to the network. This is how we were able to redistribute the work and make sure that our employees, or the vast majority of public servants across the country, are still contributing to the work.
No, that's great. It's been really amazing to see, the productivity of our public servants, quickly adjusting to something of this magnitude. But during these difficult times, it is really essential that Canadians have access to mental health supports they need. And I'm curious, what actions has the Treasury Board taken to ensure the mental health supports for our federal employees?
Minister, would you like me to respond to that?
Yes, please, Nancy.
Thank you, and thank you for the question. It has been said that mental health is actually the second silent pandemic behind COVID-19. And we have been extremely attentive from the get-go. The Treasury Board Secretariat has developed a toolkit that addresses several aspects of mental health for workers, including a very specific focus for frontline managers who have been asked to connect with the workers, make sure the essential work is continuing and the expectations are understood, but also that they are attentive to the accommodation needed for the individual situations of our employees working from home. And what we've done is that toolkit is on our website, accessible to other employers too, and it's been used tens of thousands of times. We have also made sure that we have reached out with webcasts. Just this week, we had a webcast with 6,000 people accessing it to talk about how to cope with the current situation. And this is not just about self-care, it's also about care of our teams. It's also tools, very practical tools that allow managers to learn how to manage a team remotely. And this has been a significant opportunity for us to learn that.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Chair.
We'll now go to Madame Vignola. 6 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
6 minutes, please. Ms. Vignola. Hello. Good morning. I want to look ahead now. On the 280,000 workers, how many are working remotely? It can be a percentage as well. Thank you, Ms. Vignola. I'll give you some numbers. The vast majority of employees are working remotely. Nancy can give you the exact percentage if she has the numbers for Treasury Board, because we have to remember that the Treasury Board Secretariat does provide advice and guidance, but it is not the one implementing and making those decisions at the departmental level. So we have disaggregated data for the various departments. 58% of the 300,000 employees falling under the Treasury Board Secretariat are outside the National Capital Region. And even before the crisis, they have often been using telework tools. Great percentage, approximate number of people working remotely. Nancy, do we have those numbers?
Oh, le téléphone.
Oh, it doesn't look like the phone. How many? 36, to give you an idea of access, or Francis rather can give you the access from remote access. This remote access doesn't really mean people working from home, but we see about 150,000 simultaneous connections to the system, to the secure VPN access. Again, that's not an exact number because many people will be working outside of regular working hours, but it gives you an idea, 150,000 simultaneous connections. This gives you the indication that there are many working remotely. And we have asked many to work outside of regular working hours to ensure that we don't overload the system. Thank you. So many of these public servants have needed equipment, I imagine, computers or other. In terms of cost, first question, how much has that cost so far? That is to provide public servants with the material they need, the equipment they need. And once they return to their offices, what will happen to all this equipment? Francis, do you have anything to add on the costs? Well, I don't have the exact numbers, but one of the other ministers will be appearing in a few weeks with much more specific numbers with the Shared Services Canada, I believe. I know that many people already had tablets and were equipped to do remote work, but there has been an increase both in the capacity of the network and also in the use of specialized tablets so that protected B and a more highly classified information can be exchanged. Yes, and there was a very rapid increase. And we also expect these tools to continue to be useful when working habits will differ from during the crisis. Yes, there have been many changes brought about by this crisis. A little while ago, there was a shared workspace initiative put in place. First of all, was this measure very popular? What were the lessons learned? And do we expect to broaden the use of this initiative so that it applies to more people? Very good question. I think I'll give Francis the opportunity to respond. Yes, the measure you mentioned would fall more under the Controller General, so perhaps Kathleen could give you more information in terms of the workspace. In terms of remote work, I believe we've seen a big increase in the ability to allow for remote work. We've seen that across a number of organizations outside the government. So there is an increased capacity and ability to work remotely that the government should take into account when we are looking at bringing employees back to the workplace after the pandemic. So if there are more and more people who are looking at their options, that is, continuing to work remotely, there's quite a large number of buildings, real estate. What is going to happen to those at the federal level if they're not put to as much use?
Answer.
Okay.
Well, the response will be quite brief. That is an issue we'll have to be looking at after the pandemic.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to
All right, we'll see.
minutes, please. Mr. Green.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Honorable Minister, are there collective agreements currently expired for which negotiations have been temporarily suspended due to COVID-19? And if so, how many agreements are there and how many employees are affected?
MP, Member of Parliament Green, for that question. As you might, as you know already, but it's worth repeating, we are extremely grateful, and we include all Canadians for the hard work that public servants do all the time, but in particularly in the context of the difficult crisis that we have lived through. There are currently 35 agreements signed with public servants covering around 170,000 employees. Sorry, for 70, not 170, but 70,000 employees. And we are continuing our important work with the remaining bargaining agents so that we can conclude agreements for all public servants employees.
Certainly, we're all in support of the public workers, and I can't imagine what it's like for public sector workers who've been without a contract for quite some time. For those that are expired, how long have they been expired, and what is the estimated liability in the federal accounts for any outstanding payback that may be accrued or owed to the affected employees?
So for the precise answers to your questions, which I believe you deserve to know to get, I would turn to Nancy for the length of time that we have been engaged in discussions, and as you said, dating to when those agreements have expired and any other related matters. Nancy?
Merci, Monsieur le Ministre, et merci pour la question.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you for this question.
This round of collective agreements took us until the summer of 2018 for the vast majority of the collective agreements. And we have been at the table ever since bargaining agents signaled their intent to launch the process.
So according to the, as it relates to the outstanding payback that's accrued or owed, can you expand on that, please?
Yes. So I don't have the precise numbers. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if Glenn Purvis is on the call with us, given the technical difficulties. But if not, I can get back to you with the. We can send that information after the call.
Sure.
What I can say is that.
I will go on to the next question just because my time is limited. According to the Government of Canada Infobase, as March 31st, 2019, the federal public service comprised of just under 288,000 employees. Permanent or indeterminate employees account for 83% of the federal public services, term employees 11%, casual employees 3%, and students 3%. Has the COVID-19 pandemic had an impact on the number of term, casual, and student employees in the federal public service?
It's a very good question. I know some of the answers. I would prefer, however, to turn to Nancy for more complete answers.
Thank you, Minister. We don't have an indication that the composition per se would have changed. Those numbers take there's some lag for us to get the numbers, but what I can tell you is that with regard to the term indeterminate and casual employees, we have made sure that people were as productive as they could using telework like we discussed before. As for students, we know that there has been a significant drop in referrals compared to last year, and the Public Service Commission, who is responsible for the programs for student recruitment, and Treasury Board Secretariat have worked together to make sure that our students are provided with a good opportunity to contribute to resolve the crisis and help us as we work on recovery. And this is important for our students. This can affect their graduations, but this would also would allow us access to a qualified workforce that typically continues and forms la relève.
Okay.
And
my apologies, but I'm really interested in getting to the heart of the matter here, and I'll be watching with interest, particularly around the students, given this government's reliance on the Canada Summer Jobs as a way to supplement student employment. And if I'm hearing that there might be a shift even within our own federal government, I'll be watching that with interest. What will be the impact then on the pandemic, on the composition of the federal public service in the medium to long term? Because I know lots of people are very afraid that austerity days are to come and there'll be attacks on public sector workers. And I'm just wondering what will be the medium and long term impacts on composition?
Well, if I may step in, as Nancy has said, and as you seem to be agreeing to, Mr. Green, we are going to need to look after students and our youth in the weeks and the months to come, because not only do they go through very difficult circumstances. Today's announcement, by the way, about the unemployment rate tells us that 13% unemployment rate for all Canadians, but almost 35% for young Canadians. And we will need to look after them because they will be extremely important in launching back the economy and supporting the public service in the future.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to our 5-minute rounds. Mr. McCauley, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister, you stated in your briefing document you provided to the committee that employees working from home are responsible for safely guarding the information. How are you ensuring that there are no privacy breaches, and are employees being tracked?
Well, we are not only, of course, and as you say quite well, mindful of the importance of maintaining the integrity of the government.
Minister, we're short on time. Could we just go to the answers, please?
Well, in that case, I would turn to Francis, who would know a lot more about the various measures that have been taken.
Thank you.
Sure. I guess I would say two parts. We've increased the technological capacity for employees to work securely and remotely by increasing the secure remote access and access to the VPN, and by, in some instances, augmenting the capacity around things like a Microsoft Office 365 that is tenant, that is up to protected B. We've also reissued guidance to all employees, reminding them that they're only to be using the appropriate type of vehicles and instruments for the nature of conversation they're having.
How are we following up on that? The reason I ask is last year we had what I understand was the very worst in our Canadian history of privacy breaches. We had 5,000 incidents, of improper storage or handling of private documents. The very worst department in the entire federal service was TBS with over 10%. So how are we actually ensuring that besides just issuing guidance? The reason I ask is the department, when confronted with the 10%, commented that they were merely rebriefing employees on proper safeguarding practices. So what are we doing besides that?
Before I turn to Francis, I know the public service quite well, and I can assure you, Mr. McCauley, that they do all that they need to do to preserve the integrity of the system. Okay. But for more details, perhaps Francis would want to step in.
Okay. Thanks. Could I just ask, please, no more interruptions. Can we just stick to the answers, please? We're short on time. Thanks very much.
So with regards to the networks, there's ongoing monitoring and oversight by a combination of us, CSC, and SSC. With regards to other mediums, including paper, etc., employees are trained, employees are provided guidance, and we expect in the access to information privacy groups within departments to be monitoring and employees to self-report.
Great, thanks very much. Ms. Vinola was talking, and I'm sorry I missed some of the answers, about the public sector working at home. We don't have an exact number of how many are working at home besides vast majority, but do we know how many are working from home or how many are on paid leave right now because they're not able to productively or properly work from home, either because of just reality or lack of proper equipment?
Nancy, would you like to provide whatever information we have at the level of the Secretariat?
We have very little aggregate information at this point. Departments are collecting that, and we are working on aggregating that. We should have data towards the end of the month. But the vast majority of people are productive. Would you provide that to our committee when you have it?
Yeah, would you provide that to our committee when you have that?
Absolutely.
Thanks. Also, there's amount of those who are working who are on paid leave for a shorter period and have now received the equipment or access to the system and are back to work, so to speak, if you could provide that as well. How much are we paying for public sector employees to be working at home? Like we're covering internet, I assume, for the majority of them, or other equipment. Would you be able to provide how much we're paying for this?
Well, there is a link, a direct link with the question asked by a member of Parliament, Vignola, just a moment ago.
But not specifically for covering internet, I don't think, access.
Oh, well, that's right. Your question is even more specific. So in that case, who among the team would be best able to answer?
You can get back to us at the same time when you're providing the other information. Minister, I want to chat with you about, you've been talking with the Information Commissioner, Ms. Maynard, about access to information. She's trying to get the government to be more proactive with transparency. We've seen all ATIPs put on hold. When will we actually start seeing members of parliaments and Canadians have access to the access information requests? And what are we doing to proactively ensure transparency in this time?
So we had indeed I had indeed a very good discussion.
Unfortunately, Minister, while it's an excellent question, we're out of time. I would ask if you could provide a full and complete answer to Mr. McCauley's question in writing and write to our clerk. He will then distribute that answer to all committee members. We'll now go on to our second 5-minute intervention. Monsieur Drouin.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Minister, for taking the time to talk with us and to talk to us about his department and our COVID-19 questions. And I would like to thank all civil servants that work really hard to make sure that Canadians get access to the benefits they need in this difficult time. I represent several civil servants. I wonder what measures were taken. Are there any extra measures if, for example, their partner gets COVID? how is the department informing civil servants that could be on sick leave and would have to take care of their partner? Thank you, Mr. Douin. Two parts of your questions are really important. We really appreciate the work of civil servants in this current crisis and their personal conditions. They're really impacted by that. And they have more professional responsibilities today. So how can we support the civil servants so they can service Canadians? There are some mental health measures, physical health measures, access to the right tools to do a good job. And we've also provided them with those measures that will protect the health of their family, of their kids. But there's more to that. I wonder if Nancy would like to tell us how we take care of our employees and their close environment. Your microphone, Nancy. Perfect. Thank you for this comment and thank you for the question. As the minister said, several exceptional specific measures were taken for the management of this crisis. We want to make sure that a person is not without any income. We make sure that people who are in a dire situation can have access to psychological support services, and that there be less requirements than before the crisis. There has to be due diligence as far as the use of these services. There's access to social workers, a psychotherapist. You don't have to go directly to a psychologist, and that helps us in maintaining the services to the Canadian population. Thank you so much for this answer. Maybe I have time for a last question. I'm lucky enough to represent civil servants who work in French and in English. Another question I may have as MPs, we can see that there is a need for translation services. How can public servants work in the official language of their choice? Nancy, this is a really important question. This crisis is no excuse to let go of the respect of both official languages, including the language at work. So at the Treasury Board Secretariat, we reminded the official languages champions in departments that it is very important to be able to communicate in both official languages. I do realize that were some complaints at the Official Languages Commissioner's Office, but we make sure we do everything in our power to respect all linguistic requirements. Thank you so much. Mr. Chair, how many time have I got left?
Je vais tout simplement terminer.
Okay, I will simply conclude in saying thank you so much.
We will now, colleagues, I'm just looking at the time. We'll have only a time for one more 5-minute intervention. I apologize, Mr. Johari. Once again, you've drawn the short straw. But our final 5-minute intervention will go to Mr. Elboutev. 5 minutes, please, sir.
Yes, thanks, Minister, for appealing the question to you. We have shortages of PPE. I've been receiving calls from more beyond Alberta, from professionals that they're looking to get PPE so they can go back to work. Are you aware that we had a few flights that came back empty? Are you aware of that?
Well, may I start by saying that providing personal protective equipment to our public servants is an absolute priority. And if you wanted more details on that, I could turn to some of the
I do. Thank you, Minister. For that purpose, I would really like to ask you if you can, if your department or your ministry can provide the manifest for all the flights since the beginning of start getting those equipment in until now, the manifest for Air Canada and for Cargojet. So I would like to make that request.
I would love to answer positively to your important request. However, you would need to turn to procurement and PSPC because they are the ones handling all matters of international procurement.
Yeah, thank you. I like to make that request if you don't mind. I mean, to get us this information or ask that department to supply that. That be possible?
Well, I think you can make that reasonable request to them, and if you would like my assistance to connect you to their team, I would be glad to do so.
That would be great. Minister, do you know if the government purchases PPEs directly from suppliers or from other countries? Yes or no?
We have a strategy in the government of Canada that is based on both international procurement in a world in which PPE are solicited by a large number of countries, and through a significant increase in domestic production. So domestic production is supported by ISED, and international procurement is supported by PSPC.
So, if we can we say, or are you suggesting that we have contracts directly with other countries, or it's going through a middleman or kind of a private sector?
Well, I know you want some clear and accurate answers. So again, I would encourage you and would be able to support you in connecting to PSPC for all the good information that you're seeking.
Minister, on the PPE for armed forces, we've been asking armed forces to come and assist, especially in Quebec, in Laval area and others. How are we making sure that our armed forces are getting the protection needed in order to be able to help and assist in this hard time?
Well, the importance of protecting our armed forces, especially in the light of what they currently do in Ontario and Quebec, always needs to be reminded. And again, I would be happy to engage you and help engage you with Minister Sajjan, who is very mindful of that and could provide details on how he does that.
Okay, you've mentioned in your speech or in your opening remarks, 7.5 million applications of CERP, $14 billion in assistance. Is that on a monthly basis?
No, this is a cumulative number since March the 15th.
So if we take the $14 billion divided by 7.5, that's less than $2,000. Is that correct?
You would need, in this case, to seek guidance from Minister Qualtrough and Minister Le Boutillier. They would explain to you.
But that in your speech, Minister.
Yeah, so we know the figure. I mentioned it for your knowledge this morning. So 7.5 million people, but a total of 5 or 10.7 applications. So that adds up to a number of billions of dollars, which the details of which I would be happy to try to solicit from other ministers.
Yeah, I think it's fair to ask you that question because it was in your opening remark. I have how much time I have, Chair? Do I have another minute or so?
You've got 30 seconds.
Okay, final question on the you mentioned the unclassified work. How do you define unclassified work in your speech?
Well, at the federal level, we have different levels of classifications. They range from unclassified to very secret levels, and each of these levels is managed through directives that the Treasury Board Secretariat provides and actually implemented by the different departments and agencies.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. I'm going to excuse the minister and his officials with our thanks. I know you've got an appointment at 12 noon, Minister. We do thank you for your appearance here today. And to all of your officials, again, thank all of you. Colleagues, we will suspend for only a couple of minutes while we get our next slate of witnesses prepared. We're suspended. I'm calling this meeting to order. We are reconvened. For the benefit of those witnesses who have joined us, I'd just like to make a couple of comments to assist you in your presentations. Before speaking, make sure you are recognized by the chair. When you're ready to speak, you can either click on the unmute button or you can press down the space bar if you're using a desktop computer. If you release the bar, you'll go automatically back on mute. When you're speaking, please speak slowly and clearly for the benefit of our interpreters. And I'd also like to explain some of the guidelines regarding the interpretation. If you are speaking en français, please go to the French channel. If you wish to make your comments and remarks in English, please make sure you're on the English channel. If you are going to be switching from one language to the other, please pause briefly before going to the second language to allow our interpreters to catch up with you. But I would encourage you all, if a question is asked you in one language, I would ask that you give the response in the appropriate and corresponding language. Now, I understand we have 4 presentations. We will go immediately to them, but a reminder to colleagues, we must adjourn at 1 p.m. sharp because our technicians need time to start setting up for the next meetings that will start approximately an hour after hours. So with that, I'm not sure which order of speaking, but I have representatives from the Canada Employment and Immigration Union, the Public Service Alliance of Canada, Services Employees International Union, Healthcare, and the Union of Taxation Employees. I have first up Mr. Bork.
Okay, dear members of the Standing Committee, as National President of the Canada Employment and Immigration Union, please allow me to begin by thanking you for the time to speak on behalf of our 20,000 plus members from Service Canada, IRCC, and IRB. It is our members that works to serve the public and ensures the delivery of key government services every day, such as old age security, CPP, employment insurance, as well as processing applications for citizenship, permanent residency, and refugee status. It is our members who have been responsible for the enormous task of responding to the initial influx of EI claims and inquiries, and adjusting quickly to the changes in program delivery across 3 departments at a crucial time. It is worth noting that over 70% of our CEIU members are women. Many are single mothers, and many are among the lowest income earners within the public service. They are disproportionately responsible for childcare and domestic labor while also being on the front lines of the pandemic, physically and virtually. They have been working across Canada in various offices and call centers where they serve the public and ensure the delivery of key government services and initiatives every day. Needless to say, our members have gone above and beyond in an unprecedented fashion while being heavily impacted by this pandemic. As we focus on Mental Health Week, we must highlight the importance of providing a safe and healthy workplace for all. As the surge in EI claims place unprecedented pressures on our members at Service Canada, the number of incidents of verbal abuse and physical violence increased drastically. Our members deserve safe and healthy workplaces and fair working conditions. Our members fear for their safety and fear being vectors of transmission for their loved ones and for also anyone accessing in-person services centers. While closing the center has postponed the urgency of the matter, it is critical that personal protective equipment is available and that safety measures are upheld by management. There were many reports of managers forcing members to continue to work in unsafe conditions. While the response from the employer was tepid to past requests for plexiglass barriers and security presence, the pandemic underscores the importance of these measures to protect against the risk of the pandemic and also to reduce the risk of physical violence. In call centers, the downtime between calls is inadequate, especially when call involves verbal abuse and other triggering matters, and the emphasis on limiting call time often leads to frustrated Canadians calling back with new problems. It's time to provide more adequate training and support to call center staff, allow appropriate downtime between calls, and place an emphasis on successful resolution of calls rather than rushing through the queue. Overcrowded offices, bed bugs, and bat-ridden buildings and outdated telework policies conspire to creating a toxic environment where members working in close proximity become vectors of transmission as their own health deteriorates. The alternative of working off the kitchen table for months on end highlights the needs for modern, humane, and sustainable approach to office space use and teleworking within the public service that is consistent with promoting mental health, reducing medium and long-term health risk, and reducing the risk of spreading the virus. Members are now reporting that they are being pressured to return to unsafe working conditions when what they need is empathy and support from management to do their jobs. The mental health impacts of the pandemic presents an opportunity for our government to lead the way through compassionate, safe, and humane approaches to management that are conducive to good mental health outcomes and good service to Canadians. Just before the pandemic, our members rallied to mark 4 years of continued service through the Phoenix Nightmares. Many are still doing their jobs in the middle of this pandemic while still sorting pay issues and continue to show up and get the job done. CIU is proud of the work done by our members every day, but especially the tremendous work accomplished in processing a record-breaking volume of activity and delivery of critical government supports to Canadians in need. If the pandemic has taught us anything, it is that sweeping changes across the public service are possible. Telework works, and the barriers we thought existed can be overcome. Health and safety at work is a critical public health issue. Mental health awareness is a success factor in delivering quality service to Canadians. And communications between union and management are critical for everyone's safety, especially during a pandemic. We hope that the federal government will remember the incredible dedication and commitment our members have shown throughout the pandemic and every day, and we look forward into talking about it further at the bargaining table. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bork. We will now go representing the Public Service Alliance of Canada, Mr. Aylward. Mr. Aylward, your opening statement, hopefully 6 minutes or less, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, and I want to thank the committee for the opportunity to participate today. I would like to start by commending the federal government for its rapid response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Our 140,000 members in the federal public service are proud to be a major part of this response and proud of their contribution in this very difficult time. Many are on the front lines battling the virus and delivering emergency financial support to millions of Canadians. The government has been in unprecedented regular communication with our union as the pandemic has unfolded, and we are encouraged by the spirit of cooperation. It has allowed us to facilitate significant changes across the public service in order to help Canadians, but also to support the tens of thousands of public service workers who have had their work and personal lives upended. Our members at the Canada Revenue Agency and Service Canada have helped process literally millions of applications for financial assistance for individuals and businesses and are continuing to do so every day. Border service officers deal with potentially infected travelers daily. Food inspectors are in grave danger at meat packing plants that have been overrun with COVID-19. And our members in our federal corrections institutions face similar threats. And thousands have stepped forward to do completely new jobs whenever there has been a need to support the government's relief efforts. They have done so around the clock when needed, with their children by their side, with family members to care for, and with the constant stress of changes that the virus has brought to the daily lives of each of us. These are just a few of the examples of how our members are putting Canadians first during this crisis. But as this time passes, the employers' words of gratitude are beginning to ring hollow. That's because 140,000 of these PSAC members have been working without a new contract for years. Many have been waiting up to 4 years. There is no reason for this continued delay. Elsewhere in Canada, the need to provide stability to the public service and fair compensation to public service workers during this pandemic has been recognized. The government of Ontario bargained and settled with its teachers' unions in the first weeks of this crisis, and the Quebec government is at the bargaining table with unions representing over 500,000 public sector workers. Canada Post, a large federal employer, reached a tentative agreement with the Public Service Alliance of Canada members just weeks ago. The government implemented massive changes at lightning speed across the public service with the help of our members. Yet, it has refused to move forward on the comparably modest task of settling a round of bargaining. PSAC members represent 50% of the federal workforce, and these are the same workers who continue to experience 4 years of Phoenix pay nightmares and have yet to be compensated for their hardships. Canadians need a stable public service that is well supported during this difficult time, and our members certainly deserve the right to the basic, fair, collective agreement. As part of the response to COVID-19, we are urging the federal government to get their negotiators back to the table with a mandate to reach a fair settlement for the benefit of PSAC members and all Canadians. On separate matter, the government must continue to make health and safety of federal public service workers a top priority. Despite some exceptions that we continue to work through, we acknowledge that the federal government has worked hard to keep the vast majority of our members safe during this pandemic. Moving forward, whether on the front lines or in offices, our members need to know that protective measures and training will be in place and that personal protective equipment will be in stock and available. In addition, working with provinces to speed up testing and contact tracing is very important for our members in addressing any future outbreaks at the work sites. The government has done a commendable job at supporting workplace mental health in the federal public service in these extraordinary times, as the emotional and physical strain of the pandemic continues to grow. This should remain a top priority for the government. More broadly, PSAC is pleased the government has responded to the crisis with progressive measures to support Canadians. Actions such as expanding access to employment insurance, the CERB, support for students, parents, seniors, women's shelters, food banks, emergency housing, all of it has been welcome and much needed. Many of PSAC's non-federal government members, such as the almost 30,000 workers we represent in universities, have been hit hard by closures and have been helped by the government's financial support. Lastly, our union would urge the government and all parliamentarians to look carefully and optimistically at the future. The COVID-19 pandemic has created enormous hardship, suffering, and tragic loss for so many, but it has also created an opportunity for big change. The horrific living and working conditions in the long-term care sector have been exposed, as have other dangerous consequences of decades of government cuts, low wages, and corporate greed. People are more conscious of their own vulnerabilities and understand better the importance of having robust social support systems in place and the need for strong public services. There is a consensus that going back to the way things used to be is not an option. The government has made important decisions to support Canadians, decisions that have required significant funding. The impact of the pandemic is severe, and a lasting recovery will take time. The federal government's expenditures are an investment in Canadians and in the future of this country. What this pandemic has shown is that public services are unique and indispensable. We cannot return to an austerity mentality and cutbacks to social services and programs.
Mr. Aylward, thank you. I'm going to have to cut you off there, sir. And certainly, unfortunately, we have very limited time to get all of the questions in. We will now go to the representatives from the Service Employees International Union Healthcare. Madame Stewart, you have 6 minutes or less, please.
Great. Thank you and good afternoon. Members of the committee, thank you for hearing from me today. More importantly, thank you for the opportunity to hear from SCIU. We represent over 2 million members across the United States, Puerto Rico, and Canada. I proudly serve as International Vice President of our union, as well as President of SCIU Healthcare, which represents over 60,000 frontline healthcare workers in the province of Ontario. Many of these members are employed in the long-term care facilities, which have become an epicenter of the COVID-19 pandemic. The crushing impact on these homes, their staff, and the residents that they care for cannot be overstated. Simply put, our system of care has failed. We knew two things about this virus early on. One, that this was severely contagious, and two, that the elderly were especially susceptible to illness and death. You would think that subnational governments responsible for congregate care settings of the elderly would immediately recognize the risk of inaction around the long-term care sector. But provinces like Ontario overlooked the privately run long-term care sector and the inherent vulnerabilities that underpin those facilities. Please note, I want to highlight the role of provincial governments only to stimulate discussion about what role the federal government could have in the future as we overhaul the long-term care sectors across Canada. In black and white, the data tells us that these outbreaks and the resulting death toll seem to be concentrated in for-profit facilities. Deaths in for-profit homes are 50% higher than nonprofit homes, and the rate of deaths is nearly double in for-profit homes. Behind each COVID-19 number is a tragic story. Christine Magdagarian, Arlene Reed, Sharon Roberts, each a woman, each in her 50s, each a person of color, each a personal support worker. If you were now willing to recognize them as healthcare heroes, then I submit to you that it would be an injustice to the families in mourning if we do not reveal the failings of our system. First, Canada must maintain an ongoing supply of personal protective equipment. This is our #1 concern. There are a chorus of cries from our nurses, personal support workers, dietary aides, cleaners. You name the job classification, and they'll tell you there is rationing of PPE. Workers who should have been supplied much earlier continue to be left without the appropriate masks, shields, and gowns, leaving them to wear garbage bags instead. Second, out of concern for public health, employment in long-term care facilities should require full-time jobs with benefits such as paid sick time and a pension. Then workers would not be labeled as wrongdoing pollinators and restrict them to only one facility, as if they had done something wrong other than seek a living wage paycheck. Third, mandate higher staffing levels to improve quality of care for residents and seniors. Providing higher levels of frontline staff would ensure that we have the human resources available to bathe, change, feed, and care for elderly, not just during a pandemic, but always. The failings we experience today were made worse because for-profit long-term care corporations have a competing self-interest at their core. That is, the fiduciary duty to their shareholders. The failed experiment for for-profit operators in our long-term care system must come to an end. Members of the committee, in whatever form an overhaul might take, the federal government can and should play a role in supporting these precariously employed women who deliver our care. We are calling on the federal government to strengthen the retirement security of precariously employed, low to modestly paid care workers without access to workplace pensions. After a career of serving our committees, they deserve to retire with the economic dignity they've earned. Without the support, the home care and long-term care sectors will leave behind workers incentivized to seek employment in other parts of our healthcare system that provide a more secure retirement. Before I end, I want to point out the big elephant in the room. Each member of this committee and your colleagues in Parliament and across government are going to be heavily lobbied for massive for-profit long-term care corporations and their industry associations. Are companies like Chartwell, Revera, Sienna, and Extendicare going to lobby for higher standards for senior care with mandated staff-to-resident ratios, or transparency into transfer payment agreements for government contracts, or for full-time jobs for women who deliver the care. Instead, they'll push to reduce regulations or for government to pay for expenses the company itself should be paying. So when the lobbyists of the for-profit providers knock on your door, I want you to remember all those who have died and ask yourself, whose side will you be on? The side of shareholders profiting from our care system, or the side of the elderly and the women who care for them, too many of whom we've already lost? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Stewart. We will now go to our last intervention, representing the Union of Taxation Employees, Monsieur Brière. 6 minutes or less, please, sir. Have to unmute your microphone, sir.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair. You hear me now?
Perfectly.
Perfect. My opening remarks will be in both official languages, so I'll do my very best to go from one language to the other and stay within the 6 minutes. If we can. Okay. Bonjour, madame.
Hello, members of the committee. I would also like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to take part in this forum today. The Union of Taxation Employees, often called the UTE, is an element of the PSAC and represents 28,000 employees working at the Canada Revenue Agency.
To the federal government, but especially the Canada Revenue Agency, for stepping up in these difficult times due to the COVID-19 pandemic. While the Union of Taxation Employees and the Canada Revenue Agency have enjoyed, for the most part, a history of meaningful, respectful, and collaborative consultations, the COVID-19 crisis called for a new era of collaboration, innovation, and timely decision-making. During this time, UTE set aside our difficulties and polarization around the collective bargaining process in an effort to deliver the government's mandate and promises to Canadians, and we called upon our members to step up to do what was needed in these trying times. I am pleased so far with the cooperation which has allowed us to agree on key issues, such as a leave for our members who cannot work due to the pandemic, and also by postponing any set deadlines in regards of staffing or grievance issues. It is important for me to mention the commitment and the exemplary work done by our members that have been assigned new tasks and additional programs like no other department in the federal government. They work evening shift, weekends from their home, juggling with their family obligations and childcare obligations as well. UT members have shown unwavering dedication and commitment to their work as they rapidly implement the government's various financial support measures for the public during the pandemic, such as the massive Canada Emergency Response Benefit, the wage subsidy, the student benefit, and expansions to the GST credit and the Canada Child Benefit. All this without forgetting that they must continue to process the benefits that are normally remitted to the public, as well as the tax returns for individuals and corporations during this tax season. When COVID-19 hit, UTE was in the middle of conducting strike votes in an effort to engage the CRA into returning to the bargaining table to negotiate a fair and reasonable collective agreement for our members and to take job action, if necessary, to achieve an agreement. In light of the crisis, the PSAC-UTE decided to suspend the strike votes in an effort to do our part to assist in controlling the spread of the virus, and more importantly, to assist the CRA and the Canada government in their efforts to provide economic benefits to those Canadians greatly in need at this time. Initially, the CRA scrambled to outfit some critical workers with equipment so they could work from home. At the same time, other large numbers of critical employees were required to physically report to the workplace to provide service to taxpayers. Through collaborative efforts between the CRA and UTE, we were able to reduce the number of employees required to be physically at the workplace and to increase the number of employees able to telework to meet the ever-changing new and efficient demands for the delivery of economic benefits and services to Canadians. When the CRB was implemented, CRA needed to expand its capacity to help Canadians with the process of applying for the new benefit. CRA put out the call to its non-essential employees who were at home, asking them if they would volunteer to work the phones, answering questions from applicants and providing other services, notwithstanding that these functions were not part of their work descriptions and were outside their normal hours of work. CRA's employees responded loudly and proudly with over 7,500 volunteers stepping forward, the vast majority of whom are UTE members. These volunteers agreed to work long hours and on weekends answering questions from and processing applications from Canadians, some 4 million of whom have applied for support since the onset of the pandemic. The agency's virtual call center hours run to 11 p.m. to ensure service is accessible from coast to coast, in contrast to the normal extended hours to 9 p.m. offered during the regular tax filing season. Our members have also been asked to complete verifications and eligibility, and this requirement will continue as time goes on in order to ensure compliance and safeguard the country's economic interest. Other members are working from tax centers supporting the government's boost to the GST, HST credit, and the Canada Child Benefit in response to the pandemic. UT allows the government with respect to its initiatives to safeguard the economic interests of Canadians, and we are proud to be a contributing and critical component of the delivery of these initiatives. At the outset, and with the ever-increasing levels of service and effort required to deliver these benefits, we knew that this would be a daunting task. But at the same time, we had confidence that our members would accept the challenge and deliver the necessary services with the professionalism, dedication, loyalty, and integrity that they have always shown. And
I want to reiterate that the members of UT are working so hard, even though they have not had any kind of salary increase since November 2015, and that their collective agreement expired back in November 2016. In addition, many of these employees are working for a determinate period and have been working loyally for CRA, and they have a very different outcomes. We respectfully ask that the federal government do as the provincial municipal government have done, and that it acts quickly to conclude collective agreements during this pandemic.
Closing, I want to thank you once again for allowing me the opportunity to address this committee, and I remain available to answer any questions you may require. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Colleagues, as I mentioned at my outset of my remarks before this meeting started, I needed about 5 minutes at the end of this meeting to discuss some witnesses that we'll be bringing in post May 15th. So we will have time for one complete round of 6-minute interventions. We will start with Mr. Abutev. 6 minutes, please, sir.
Actually, I think it's me, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
That's a little change that I got on my list, but Mr. McCauley, you go right ahead.
Thanks. Witnesses, thanks for your comments. Mr. Briere, let me start with you. First of all, thanks very much for your very upbeat, positive report on what your workers are doing. It's inspiring to hear that message as opposed to a constant attack and self-centered focus. Let me ask, do you know how many of your workers are actually working from home and how many are actually in the office? The reason I ask is a lot of work is being done, especially around the CERB, which is great. There are still a lot of outstanding tax issues with the CRA that we're hoping to get looked after for our constituents, and we're told, well, it's going to wait, and we understand that 100%. We're just trying to get an idea of how many are working on past cases, how many are still in the office with access to files, and the follow-up question is, what's going to be needed at your offices for us to move forward in a safe manner, such as space in the workplace, et cetera? I'd like to hear back from you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, please go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To answer your first question regarding the number of people working either on the site or remotely, there's about 2,500 employees of the CRA that are still working on site as we speak. And there's, I would say, about 30,000 people working remotely. So the CRA expanded its bandwidth greatly, and it's a bandwidth that's shared with the Canada Border Services Agency. So we can have almost 40,000 people, like the entire staff of the CRA could work remotely right now. And some of these workers, the vast majority of these workers are critical workers. So on site, they're all critical, 2,500, and also 22,000 roughly are working from home that are doing critical work, and about over 8,000 are doing non-critical work, but still important work. Your question about, what are we looking for to go back to, I guess, resume the normal activities, if that can ever happen. We are in discussion with CRA, like all the departments. They're looking at doing a resumption plan or resumption plans, and it depends. I think that with the new reality, it looks like not everybody will be going back to work on site. There'll be a portion of employees that will be able to go back inside, but they need to have physical distancing to work safely. And it's harder in some locations, like the big tax centers in Winnipeg, Jonquière. Sudbury was a massive office. You cannot have 3,000 people, I think, anymore working in that office and keeping the safe distancing. So it looks like a percentage of employees will go back to work and some others will be working remotely. That seems to be the way of the future. That's what we envision, but the CRA is looking into their resumption plan, but it's far from being ready right now, in my opinion.
Right. Thanks. Well, you mentioned critical. And critical, non-critical, could you define for us what you term as critical workers, the 2,500 that are physically still in the offices?
Well, the critical workers do 22,000 at home, 2,500 in the office. They're all doing critical work. The difference is those working on site, they're not able to work remotely, either because of the equipment. Some of the job has to be done on site, like receiving the mail and opening up the paper copy for tax returns, for example. Anything that has to do with processing the critical work, like the tax returns, the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, the CRB, all those programs from the government, they are critical to the government and to the population. That's what we mean by critical, on top of the regular tax work, doing the processing the T1 and T2, the corporations and individual tax returns on time, so people can get their reimbursement if they are waiting for a reimbursement.
Great. Thanks very much, Mr. Briere. Mr. Bourque, same question. What will it take, in your view, to have a safe return to the offices for your workers? Or are we in the same situation as the CRA, where we've got these large plants of 2,000 or 3,000 people in a call center where it's just not practical?
Yes, for us, same thing goes. One of our biggest concern is when they decide to reopen the in-person services. We've been pushing for plexiglasses and security in the front ends and making sure that there's spacing, physical spacing for clients as well. One of our concern as well is right now we do have lots of our members working from home. I think it's between 60 and 70% of staff that are working from home, for those that can. But as we know, they've been provided with a laptop, a headset, and a phone, but no ergonomic besides that. So yes, it can be done in a short term, but working long term from home without the proper equipment and the setting, it's going to be hard on the employees.
Mr. Chair, how much time?
20 seconds.
Quickly, Mr. Bourque, you mentioned you have some of the lowest paid workers in the public service. What would it be on a annual basis?
Very quickly, sir.
I would say around between 40 and 55,000.
Okay, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kuzmierczuk, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I'll be splitting my time with my colleague, MP Fergus. Thank you very much, Mr. Briere, for your testimony there. There was a terrific article in Maclean's magazine this week called, the title is Pulling Off a Bureaucratic Miracle, How the CERB Got Done. Excellent article. Highly recommend everyone have a read at that. And it talked about the fact that when the call went out to the CRA folks to get folks to work the phones to help people process their payments and whatnot, their applications, 7,500 folks from your outfit raised their hands and volunteered. Tremendous work. I know that the UTE folks have been asked to work, as the article states, 7 days a week, including 5 hours on weekdays, an extra 5 hours on weekdays, and a combined 15 hours on weekends, which amounts to about 80-hour work weeks. And I just wanted to read one excerpt from the article, which I think is important, which highlights the tremendous work, the heroic work of UTE folks. Julian Nicholson, a CRA resource officer in Hamilton, Ontario, helps colleagues navigate the CERB and in spare moments talks directly with taxpayers. He works 12-hour weekdays as well as a shorter shift on Saturdays. Nicholson says in early April he once took 185 calls in a single day. This has been our moment, he says. Knowing the tremendous work that they've the folks here have put forward, how have they managed to strike a work-life balance with the tremendous pressure that they've been on the last few weeks?
Well, thank you for the question, and thanks for your nice words for our members. They obviously, those who were processing all the benefits and answering the questions from millions of Canadians have worked around the clock. So the people working the 75, 80 hours a week obviously had a very hard time to balance their work and personal lives. The job had to be done. The call was made. We had to deliver. People at CRA are used to process, a high level, high volume of transactions, but it's unprecedented. So it's not easy. I'm always trying to be positive and talking to the media and to the public. But obviously, I've got notes here from my different regions, and there's a lot of anxiety. Some people are exhausted. Some people are starting to ask for vacation or to slow down a little bit and have somebody else helping out. So it depends on every individual. But to say that it's easy, it would be lying. It's not easy. We are processing like millions of transactions in record time. So it's difficult, but people are keeping a good spirit. If you noticed, I mentioned in my remarks that the challenge is the cloud over our heads is not having a contract. Imagine that we're doing this without a contract for 3.5 years. People are finding that unacceptable, and we're trying to get back to the table. But right now, we're holding on. But obviously, we'll need to follow up closely for the mental health of our members. But it's a challenge for, I guess, many people at Service Canada also. But at CRA, the load is pretty heavy, but we're hanging on, but we're following up closely. So far, it's going okay. And if people have some anxiety and difficulties, we're helping them out with the collaboration of the employer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Briere, and please do pass along our sincerest thanks to all of your members for their tremendous work. I will yield the rest of my time to MP Fergus.
Thank you.
And Mr. Fergus, you have about 2 minutes.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Puis,
thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to thank all the witnesses that are here. And more specifically, I'd like to raise my hat to them and to the members of their union, who all have done excellent work for all Canadians. I would like to salute the work of Mr. Aylward's member and Mr. Briere. Madame Stewart, I will direct my question to you because you are the only person to raise the issue of the racialized effects. Do you believe that it's necessary that we should disaggregate the figures, the statistics, or gather data to see if there's a racialized effect on employees who are working in long-term care facilities, who are part of a certain group or not?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. And it's an extremely important one. And the statistics already show that the majority of senior care workers in home care, long-term and retirement homes are marginalized people. They are predominantly women and, of course, women of color. So in the inquiry that we're requesting from the Ontario government, that is absolutely a question that we have on the line. All three of the members, actually all six now in Ontario, have been men and women of color. And then we're also asking, that's in the workforce, but we're also asking in the communities to take an examination of that. I believe it's tied to a number of things, predominantly income and the fact that so many of these workers have to work in multiple jobs, so they're in the community a lot. Public transportation, they come in contact with very many clients and residents, so that just adds to the potential of spreading the viruses. So absolutely, I think that's an important examination that we all have to look into.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to Madame Vignola. 6 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
6 minutes, please. Thank you so much. Mr. Bourque, you have raised the issue of ergonomics, working on your kitchen table, working from home. Did you get a lot of calls about people suddenly feeling pain after 6 weeks of working from home? If yes, do your members have access to some kind of advice on work ergonomics and adjusting? Yes, like you're saying, it's been 6 weeks. Our members are approaching us to talk about occupational therapy, or it's not working, so that the employer would let them get their ergonomic keyboard or chair. But no, of course, your kitchen table is not at the right height that you need to work. So obviously, the more time passes, the more cases we will get. So it's possible that people will start working from home more and more because of safety issues or etc. So did the employer show any openness to accommodations or buying amenities to allow employees to work safely from home? Well, we haven't had discussions currently because, like I said, things are just starting, but these discussions will have to take place. Yes, okay. Madam Stewart. Thank you, Mr. Bourque. Madam Stewart, the federal government since the beginning of the 1990s has withdrawn from health transfers to Quebec and other provinces. What do you think it had as an impact on what is being felt by your members and also the users of the health system?
Jane, thank you. That's a great question as well. There's definitely something broken in the system, and we all know that the frontline healthcare is managed and delivered by the provinces. But I think there is a role for government to play to oversee what the governments are doing on the front line. Senior care is an issue for federal, provincial, and municipal governments. The accountability of regulations and what the provinces do with that money, especially for-profit. All of the homes, for-profit and not-for-profit, get the same money through envelopes. As I said, the for-profits are accountable to shareholders. So where does those dollars come from? So then when the transfers are going through, there needs to be accountability and regulations taken over that. So I think the federal government needs to take a look and find the answers. I'm not sure exactly what they might be, but I think there's a role here for federal government to oversee some of what's going on in the provinces.
OK, la question n'était pas à savoir si...
The question wasn't whether the federal government should be involved in issues of provincial government, but whether the fact that there's been a reduction of 22% since the 90s on the transfer payments, whether that has had a negative impact on the working and life conditions of users. And I'll continue with, and if it came back, if we brought transfer payments back to 50-50, what that impact that would have, in your opinion?
Oh, definitely. I mean, an increase in money to the front line is definitely going to help secure the full-time employment of workers that need to be there. We need to address staffing levels in those homes. So any resources that can be put back in from the federal government absolutely would make a huge impact on the outcome. But again, similar to what the federal government's done through this pandemic, which has been great adding financial support, there needs to be regulations and oversight to those transfers always. So more money is always welcome, but that it goes to the right places. And that's directly frontline and into the levels of care.
Je vous remercie. Je laisse...
Thank you for that. I'll give the rest of my time to my colleague. How much time is there, Mr. Chair?
You have approximately 1 minute.
Merci.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is for those working at the CI in particular and in the public service. Earlier, you told us this whole story of how to try to answer all the questions that you get from Canadians and Quebecers. Have you looked at adding staff so that you can meet the demand? And I think this clearly shows that there are not enough people. So have you looked at that, and what has been the employer's response to those needs?
A very brief answer, if possible, please.
Okay. Bien, écoutez, c'est sûr que
Well, listen, it's clear that with the exceptional workload we're seeing today, we could really use more people. However, things will probably change very quickly. So staff who are non-essential, who are at home, who were not working, the agency asked them to help out. They were trained, and there's 7,500 people who offer their services. That's how we've been able to get through with helping.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, I want to thank on behalf of our committee all of our witnesses who appeared here today. Your comments and observations were both insightful and informative, and we do thank you for your participation. Colleagues, I will excuse the witnesses now.
Do I not get a, you said you need 5 minutes, Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry, Mr. Green. I completely, my error. You do
That's
have
okay. You may have forgot, but I certainly had not. So
and you have not just 5 minutes, sir. You have 6 minutes.
6. Well, I appreciate the time. I'll reclaim it all. I'd like to begin with my comments directed towards Ms. Charlene Stewart. I'd like to begin by saying, firstly, to the families of Christine Managarian, Arlene Reed, Sharon Roberts, and the untold other workers who have succumbed fatally to COVID on the front lines of healthcare. It could be argued, of course, that this is, that federal representation and LTCs are solely within the provincial jurisdiction. But I think given the scale of the tragedy and the magnitude of the loss within the LTCs, that line would be gravely irresponsible. I want to cite to you investigative journalist Nora Loretto, who identified of the 4,408 Canadians who have died from COVID-19, she has lined up through her research 3,790 of them to residential care. That's 85.9% of the deaths. We've heard in previous questions the ongoing inquiry into Ontario's LTCs. Back in 2018, CBC reporter John Lancaster stated that he was shocked at just how many of these facilities spend less per capita on feeding their residents than our prisons do feeding our inmates. And of course, you referenced Pete Seeger's famous line, "Which side are you on?" So I'd like to talk about that, and I'd like to start there. Just how big is a company like Chartwell?
Well, yeah, Chartwell is a big company. It's a nationwide, actually, it's a North American-wide company. And in Canada, it is definitely one of the for-profit homes. And again, some numbers that I can share with you is Chartwell is valued at over $2 billion a year. Last year, they paid out almost $130 million in dividends to shareholders. And these are nursing homes that are supposed to be, the public sees them as being not-for-profit because, of course, money comes from the public purse. And the same amount of money goes to the not-for-profits as for profits. So they are cutting money from the public envelope somewhere. And I can tell you exactly where it is. You see it. It's on the front line. It's in the care for those seniors. Not providing full-time work for those personal support workers causes them to have 1 and 2 and 3 jobs. The hours of care that the workers or the residents are getting, on average, is about 1.9, 2.25 hours of care per day. And we are calling on it to be at least a minimum of 4 hours a day. You've got people like Extended Care that receives over $263 million a year in revenue from the Ontario government. I can tell you that money is not going to the front line, and you can see it through this pandemic. The numbers are astounding, the difference between deaths and infections of not-for-profit versus for-profit. We need to do better, and that's what we're calling for in the inquiry. And we're looking across the country to do the same thing.
And it's certainly not lost on me. These privatizations started, under Mike Harris. He's now, of course, the chair of the board there at Chartwell. And we've heard you reference some other lobbying efforts that might be coming down the pipe. And I believe that there's a call for extended EI instead of, say, paid sick days. Why would that be an important thing for these big multi-billion-dollar corporations to lobby for, rather than having paid sick days for their workers?
Well, because it's all in their best interest. Again, like I say, the lobbying is for their shareholders, certainly not for the seniors who are living in their homes in their dying years, or for those caregivers who can't seam together full-time work. So paid sick days is a dream. I mean, we did have it in Ontario, and then this government took it away, which is unfortunate. We hear the chief medical officer saying that we have to stay away when we're sick. These low-wage earners cannot afford to do that. And the companies, again, are putting away profits to that degree to the shareholders. And again, a company like Revera is owned by the Canadian Pension Plan. I think we need to start there. That's a federal issue. Take a look at that.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, Bill Morneau can call him as the sole shareholder and tell him that he's not satisfied, and have that company start there. And I have to say that, if people are paying attention to this, to where the concentration of the loss of lives are, to our seniors, our most precarious people in long-term care, that this is not only an outrage, it's a national scandal. And so we know that this is, of course, being led in Ontario through your union, SEIU, Healthcare Canada, in terms of an inquiry provincially. What can we do federally that might be able to provide a national inquiry or something of the sort to ensure that as we come into perhaps a second wave of this, that we aren't, leading our most vulnerable people to be sacrificed once again?
Absolutely. I mean, as I said in my opening statements, we have to be ready for the next wave, and that is to make sure that there's proper personal protective equipment in these homes. We have to have infection control measures. When we try and talk to these corporations, they're not talking to us. We should not see personal support workers wearing garbage bags to protect themselves because multinationals like Chartwell are not providing them with the proper personal support or personal protective equipment. And the inquiry is pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. We've got to do better for the seniors of our country. They put a lot into our society. They deserve the respect and dignity in the end of their life.
I couldn't agree more. Last question is PSAC. The Treasury Board is developing a plan that's back to work for reintegration. Have you been contacted and consulted, and are you satisfied with it?
Thank you, Mr. Green, for the question.
Very brief answer, if you could, Mr. Aylward.
Really quickly, we just started talks with Treasury Board regarding a reintegration back into the workplace. We have not seen the plan, but Treasury Board has committed that we will see it in the coming days, and we look forward to consulting with Treasury Board on the reintegration into the workplace.
Thank you for the time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. And my apologies once again for temporarily forgetting that you had 6 minutes left for an intervention. Once again, thank you to all of our witnesses. It was a pleasure listening to your testimony, and you are excused. Colleagues, we will now take the remaining 4 minutes that we have before we have to adjourn, to talk a little bit about witnesses coming following May 15th. The committee did invite witnesses listed on meetings 8 and 9 of the work plan that was dated May 8th of this year. And the subject of these meetings are the distribution of medical supplies and cybersecurity. And Raphael, perhaps I'll turn it over to you for a little more in-depth explanation of some of the witnesses that we've got coming forward post May 15th. Raphael?
Yes, certainly, Mr. Chair. So the witnesses that we suggest from the work plan are, just 1 minute. So on the distribution of medical supplies, it's the Minister of Health, the President and Chief Executive Officer of Canada Post, also the Vice President of Amazon Canada, and the President of the Canadian Union of Postal Workers. And as for the 9th meeting on cybersecurity, the proposed witnesses are the Minister of Digital Government, the President of Shared Services Canada, the Chief Technology Officer of Shared Services Canada, as well as the Director General. and also officials from the communication security establishment, and finally a witness that we had today, Mr. Bilodeau, the acting chief information officer.
Thank you, Raphael. And colleagues, one other thing I should point out to your attention, Monday, May 18th is Victoria Day. Now, that doesn't mean we cannot meet virtually on that day. I believe the whips of all of the four parties are communicating with the members to see whether or not they would like a meeting on that date, or cancel a meeting outright, or reschedule the meeting for some time later in the week. And if I could get maybe some comments from committee members. Mr. Green, I see you have your hand up. Let's go to you first.
I'm just wondering what, like, I don't know what it's like federally, but what is that? What are the implications for our staff? Like, I'm really concerned and want to be considerate about our staff having that day off or whatever would be granted to them in a typical scenario.
Yeah, I assume I'll maybe ask Paul if he has more information, but I assume, Matthew, that, and a good question, that it would be all of the staff who would work that day, should we have a meeting, would be subject to the normal holiday time regulations. They would be getting time and a half, probably, perhaps double time, but it is, I believe, a stat holiday. Paul, am I right or am I wrong?
No, Mr. Chair, you are right. It is a statutory holiday. I was going to add as well that I'm sure the
Paul, we're having some audio problems. I can hardly hear you, sir.
I'm sorry. Is that better?
That's much better.
My apologies. Yes, it most certainly is a staff holiday. It's a statutory holiday. I don't know the exact provisions for everybody involved under their terms and conditions of employment. I was going to say as well, I'm sure the whips are involved and are aware that it's a statutory holiday, and they are the ones responsible for setting the schedule because they're balancing the resources amongst all of the committees, including, of course, the Special Committee on COVID. As a result, I would say if the committee has preferences for what days it should meet, it would be more efficient for actually the members to talk to their whips directly because the whips are setting the schedule. We don't know what the schedule for May 18th for that week will be yet. So what the analysts and I suggest is that simply that we isolate for the two meetings following May 15th, the witnesses that Raphael just read from the work plan that was distributed yesterday. So
and
that's what we suggest.
Thank you, Paul. And colleagues, the normal practice has been that the whips announce the following or the next week's meetings 1 week in advance. So we have not yet heard from the whips. Paul is quite correct. I know that our representative from the whips office has contacted me. I'm not sure Kelly or Zayed if you've been contacted, but that's probably the best route, is to communicate through your whips. And we will find out, I assume, next week then what the meeting schedule will be for the week of May 18th. But I haven't heard anything yet, and I'm not sure if any other member of this committee has heard from their whips. Paul, go ahead.
So, Mr. Chair, the suggestion that the analysts and I are putting forward is that we just identify which witnesses, and again, Raphael made the recommendation of those that she read off, which are isolated or from meetings 8 and 9 of the work plan of yesterday, and that we contact these for the meetings, the two meetings following May 15th, because I can't put specific dates down. But if the committee is interested in that proposal, we can put it to them for a decision.
Thank you, Paul. Comments for anyone? Kelly Block.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to suggest that we contact our whips as soon as possible to voice our opinion on whether or not we should actually be meeting on a stat holiday. And I don't know if we need to contact you, Tom, as conservative members so that you can communicate what we would prefer. And then the others will do the same. I myself, at this point in time, don't think it's necessary for us to ask staff to come in on a stat holiday to do this work. I think it is something that we could potentially catch up in the following weeks, but I would leave that to others to speak to you in terms of my colleagues. Thanks.
Yeah, and again, colleagues, the whips are the ones who will be determining the schedule. I've expressed my preference, and just for what it's worth, I've suggested, because it is a stat holiday, that we cancel the meeting outright and reschedule it rather than have it on a stat holiday. But each of you should, as it's been mentioned before, get a hold of your own whips and do it as quickly as possible. Mr. McCauley, did you have a comment or question?
Yeah, just a comment. We brought this up before about having our witnesses just, if they want to table their remarks in advance rather than reading them. And today's meeting, I think we not wasted, I'm sorry, but we took, it felt like 40 minutes just having witness statements at the beginning. And the minister going on and on and on and flipping back French and English. I'm wondering if again we can discuss as a group to agree that we're not going to take our committee time up listening to people read a written speech. The second part is I'm generally fine with postponing it. Maybe we can see if we can do it Tuesday morning before the virtual. If not, we'll just move it back in the calendar.
Kelly, thank you. We've already discussed it once, but I'll turn it over to our clerk first before I go to Mr. Green about the problems in appending statements and going directly to questions. Because we're meeting virtually, that's really not an option.
I realize that there's nothing that says they have to.
There is a background sound that doesn't allow the interpreter to do her job. Thank you.
You read like press releases.
If I may, Mr. Chair, there's nothing that obliges a witness to make an opening statement. However, our previous practice of taking an opening statement and appending it to the evidence unfortunately requires a motion of the committee to do so. The committee isn't empowered to entertain this motion pursuant to the order adopted by the House. We find ourselves in a unique situation. Also, the speaking notes we got today for the witnesses in the second half, we received them anytime from last night to this morning. There was simply not enough time for us to translate them to be able to distribute them to members ahead of time. These are part of the reasons that having witnesses deliver their opening statements before the committee allows for the broader public to hear the comments of the witnesses. One of the reasons we've been doing that, though I do understand the frustration members are having, and we are hoping that we can regulate the technical issues soon. Thank you.
Mr. Green, I think you had some comments.
I did, thank you. And I can appreciate members of the public who come in, experts, and I can appreciate them having their time, their 6 minutes. What I'm having a difficult challenge with, though, is basically having ministers come in with an hour time limit, regurgitating what amounts to basically a press release, and then having their staff, quite frankly, fumble around re-answering questions that have already been answered. Because publicly, if I can share with you, I don't ever want to have to publicly interject on staff or cut people off. And I don't like being put in a situation where I do that, recognizing as the fourth party, all of this time that's run time affects my round. And I'm the one who's going to get bumped out. We've even seen other members of the governing party and other folks get bumped out because of the fumbling that's happening here. So if there's a motion, if there's some way that we can just forego or perhaps post the opening statements, or they can put it out in a media release, I'd be happy with that. But I don't want to get frustrated, on the record with having to interject with this because I'm not getting my time.
Thank you, Matthew. I see, before I go to Kelly Block, let me just say to Paul, I suppose, Paul, and correct me if I'm wrong, we could certainly, in the matter where ministers are appearing specifically, would we not be able to contact them prior to their appearance and letting them know that it would be appreciated by the committee if we could just go directly to questions and somehow have their statement available but not read into the record?
If we have their statements available, we could consider it a brief and post it on the website of the committee, and then you could ask the ministers to go directly to questions if you want. That is an option.
Now we'll go to Kelly Block first.
Really quickly, Tom, I think that's an excellent suggestion. And if we don't do that, then we should at least ask them to choose a language that they will actually give their statement in so that we don't have the fiasco that we had today.
Yeah, as you know, that's why I interjected halfway through, Kelly, and asked if a question starts en français, complete it. The same thing in English, so we don't have to worry about spending precious seconds trying to wait for the interpretation to catch up. But colleagues, it takes us back to Raphael's presentation. We do have the list of witnesses. I've heard no one else who has suggested that we add or delete any of the witnesses suggested. So are we comfortable with going forward with the work plan and witnesses that have been proposed? And Paul, do we need a recorded vote for this?
I think Madame Vignola would like to intervene, Mr. Chair.
Me too.
Yeah,
after.
please. Yeah, Francis, and then Julie. Julie first, I'm sorry, and then Francis.
Rapidement.
And quickly, I have a suggestion. When there's not much time left, rather than going for another 5 minutes round, often Mr. Green and myself do not partake in the second round. Well, if we see there's not enough time for all, maybe we could reduce the 5 minutes to 3 minutes so we can each have a little bit of time.
Victoria, you're quite correct. We can, the committee has the ability to set whatever time frame we want. And I've arbitrarily done that on a few occasions, cut the times down from 6 to 5 to 4 minutes in an attempt to get as many questions in as possible. So I will keep that under consideration, and going forward, I will propose that if I see that it looks like we're not going to be able to get 2 complete rounds or the third round, I will propose that we cut down the time allotted and see if that meets the concurrence and the agreement with committee members. Francis, I think we have you up next.
Yeah, it was just with regards to the witnesses, and I know that
Francis, I'm having a lot of difficulty hearing you.
Is that better?
No, the audio level is still way down.
Is that better now?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. I'm just have a question with regards to one particular witness, and that's with Amazon. And I know we had all submitted our list before, but there has been some clarity provided with regards to the role that Amazon is playing. And I would just ask if it's still the will of Mr. Green to propose that particular witness. Okay.
100%.
Okay. So you want the same answer? Yeah.
No, I want them in front of our committee is what I want, Frank.
Okay.
Sure. And Raphael, and having heard that, can I entrust it upon you to try and make sure we incorporate a representative from Amazon to appear at the appropriate time?
Yes, it is already included, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? We are running a little overtime, and our technicians do have to leave to start setting up for another meeting.
I think Mr. McCauley has a comment.
Yeah, just real quickly, when can we get the updated schedule out?
The schedule?
Yes.
The schedule is already out for next week.
Oh, with the updated, did we have it with final updated witnesses?
I believe
that the updated witness list, Tom. Sorry, not the meeting schedule.
If I may, Mr. Chair, we hope to publish a notice of meeting. We hope to publish a notice of meeting today. If not, we will publish one on the weekend.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if it is the intention of the committee to adopt the proposal that was put forward by the analysts, this should be done by recorded division. Do you want me to proceed to that right now?
Yes, please, Paul, if you wouldn't mind.
All right, I'll proceed. The proposal is that for the 2 meetings following May 15th, the committee invite the witnesses listed on meetings 8 and 9 of the work plan dated May 8th, which was the list that the analysts read yesterday. I will start now to take the roll call. Monsieur Drouin.
Oui.
Mr. Johari.
Yes.
Mr. Kusmirchek.
Support.
Mr. Fergus. Je suis en faveur. Mr. Weiler.
I'm also in favor.
Mr. Abultiev.
Yes.
Ms. Block.
Yes.
Mr. McCauley.
Yes, thank you.
Madame Vignola.
Oui, je suis d'accord.
Mr. Green.
That'll be a yay for me.
And the motion is adopted unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you all. Again, I'll just give a brief goodbye, but we'll see everyone again on Monday, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you, and all have a good weekend, and stay safe. We are adjourned.